In last week's video, we stashed guys like Woody Marks, Amari DeMarcado, and a few others I'm about to expose to you in this video, so make sure you have your post notifications on, or if you're new, be subscribed to always stay 1 week ahead of your league mates, because that is legitimately what will win you a week, just like Kendre Miller will, a stash in this video. If we look at last week's numbers, he had his best game of the season, 31% of the snaps only, but saw 11 carries to Kamara's 15, 65 yards and a touchdown, putting up 12.5 fantasy points. But if you've been around this page for long enough, you know, I know, we know, it's not all about the fantasy football points score. You have to look a little bit deeper into those numbers, and he's been more efficient than Alvin Kamara so far this year. Miller is averaging more yards per carry, yards after contact per attempt, and twice as many missed tackles forced per rushing attempt, causing Kellen Moore to mix Kendre Miller into the backfield that much more, and that's exactly why we're seeing his snaps increase every single week. And why not take some of the load off a 30-year-old aging Aaron Jones and give it to your 23-year-old running back that is trending in the right direction and more efficient right now? There's no doubt in my mind, legitimately, that the Saints don't restrict Alvin Kamara at some point in the season. We look at last year, they did the exact same thing. If they continue down the path of losing every single game and being so far out of contention for any type of playoff push, why would you not put Kendre Miller in, your younger running back, and see what you have with him? Because you just paid Alvin Kamara all that money. You do not want him to get hurt. And he's been getting snaps in the early downs, in third downs as well, but also short yardage situations. He's rostered in less than 30% of leagues. This is a no-brainer mustache for the long term. I guarantee you he's going to return you value, just like Jalen Coker will, who can legitimately start for you right now in a matter of weeks when he comes back from his injury. And I have the numbers here to prove it. And as I go into this, guys, please make sure you do hit that like button. It helps me so much as a creator. It's free to you. It takes 2 seconds, and it's a win-win for everybody. But Coker, while you're doing that, was averaging 10 fantasy points per game when he was the starter healthy last season. And this team is completely desperate for wide receivers. If you look at the splits, I mean, last week and the previous, it was Tremaine, it was Hunter Renfrow as the next best options behind Tet McMillan. Xavier Legette is going to come back from his hamstring injury probably this next week, but so far in his starts this year in those 2 games, he has not played anywhere near efficiently. And last season as well, he was not that efficient on a per target basis. So when Coker comes off of his IR stint, which will be in the next 2-ish weeks, he is very well going to hop back into this offense and instantly be the number 2 wide receiver. The Panthers just released 2 other players from their roster, hopefully making room for Jalen Coker, meaning that his return is probably sooner than a lot of people think. And this team is already top 5 in passing yards this year. So when he comes in as the number 2 wide receiver in an offense that is top 5 in passing attempts, the opportunities are going to be there. I would not be worried about Tet taking a bunch of work from him and him not being fantasy viable. If anything, Tet McMillan is going to help this offense stay on the field that much more and allow more offense, more yards, and eventually more fantasy points for everybody on this team. Jatavion Sanders is also on IR with an injury too, so that could be that much less target competition for Coker. But another player that is being criminally undervalued you should stash right now is Brashard Smith for the Chiefs. Looking at face value, this backfield is a complete mess. Like, it is 100% true. It is a 3 running back committee, completely split in usage. But Smith has the highest potential singly to earn a role over guys like Isaiah Pacheco, over guys like Kareem Hunt. Both of them are dealing with really bad efficiencies right now in their total snap numbers. If you look at what we've been seeing, his splits are increasing every single week, and the most important thing, his routes run out of the backfield are also increasing. He ran 10 routes on his 19 total snaps last week, and also 4 rushing attempts. So he was being used when he was on the field. And this is why you can't look at fantasy points solely when you're evaluating a player for fantasy value or even rushing attempts. Because you look at Brashard Smith, that probably wasn't a good sign for him. But your judgments are always going to be better if you look at these underlying numbers. And that's exactly what I do for you on this channel. So again, consider subscribing if you guys are new. I would love to have you on this channel. I 100% see Brashard Smith at some point in the year working into that pass catching, maybe a Jerick McKinnon type role that we've seen work very well and be fantasy viable for the Chiefs in previous years. Not to mention, he is really 1 injury away from either of Kareem Hunt or Isaiah Pacheco to being a guy that we might possibly be able to start. He would be moving up our rankings a ton, and sometimes that's all it takes for running backs, just like we saw with Isaiah Bond, who now is a guy that 100% needs to be rostered in every single league. I don't care how deep it is. With Cedric Tillman now going on IR with his injury, likely going to be out until their bye week, which is a long ways away. that gives Isaiah Bond a good month or two to be the number 2 wide receiver in this offense, right behind Jerry Jeudy, and make a name for himself. Last week, he ran the second most routes on the team once Cedric Tillman was injured, leading him to 6 total targets on only 55% of the snaps. He already beat out Jamari Thrash in the depth chart, so that's 1+ for him as well. And that's only going to go up with his snap share, again, with Cedric Tillman out. And he was good in college, guys. A lot of people are kind of writing Isaiah Bond off because he went undrafted due to legal issues that I'm not going to get into, and he went to the Browns, so it was just no news around him. I guarantee you if he was drafted in like round 3, 4, he would be so much more rostered in fantasy football, and a lot of people are worried about this quarterback situation, which is true. It is not that good of one, but Dylan Gabriel coming in and starting for this team for however many games he does start could possibly be pretty decent. Now, he's not going to have the pass volume that Joe Flacco has. He's led this team to be second in passing attempts this year. That's not going to happen. There's no way it does. But maybe it allows room for both of these rookies and Bond and Gabriel to grow together, and maybe he can be a top target, because it's not like Jerry Jeudy has been outperforming a crazy amount and getting a ton of targets on his own. Along with Mason Taylor, who is a guy that we called out last week, who skyrocketed in value since that call out. You should be stashing him. Even if you don't need a tight end, you can either A, play defense on your league mates who do, or use him as a pretty valuable trade piece to make your team that much better. He just came off his best game of the season against the Dolphins last week, where he dropped 11.5 fantasy points, catching 5 of his 7 targets for 65 yards. He also played 81% of the snaps, and that is one thing that has never been a problem with Mason Taylor. Most rookie tight ends struggle with just being fantasy football relevant or getting on the field in general. Tight ends typically don't get involved instantly in the pass game, though. Like, I know the Brock Bowers and the Sam Laportas of their rookie years are kind of proving that to be not true anymore. But typically it does take a little bit for them because they have to learn offensive line and receiver, essentially. So it's only up from here for Mason Taylor. But we've seen Mason Taylor, again, is getting almost every single snap at the tight end position for this offense. He has since week 1. And ever since that Tyrod Taylor game where he came in, it's like the Jets realized they had an elite tight end, and now they're using him all of a sudden. Because since then, he had 6 targets and 7 targets in those last 2 games. Last week, he ran 27 routes, which, by the way, was second on the team, only behind Garrett Wilson. He is essentially their wide receiver too, and I 100% believe that there is only a matter of time until he becomes a top waiver wire ad for the majority of people that aren't on this channel when they realize he is actually valuable. So again, it pays to be early in these videos and on this channel. So I would love, again, to have you guys here if you're not subscribed already. But let's stash him now because he is questionable coming into this week. So he's probably going to be a little bit lower on the radar if he doesn't end up playing. He probably will. Just like our number 1 stash of this video, we need to be adding in Malik Washington. Now, the fact that Tyreek comes out and completely blows his leg apart, goes on IR, is going to be out for the rest of the season, and Washington is still rostered in less than 40% of leagues, shows that people are not as locked in as I thought they were. He was the number 2 wide receiver in routes run after he went injured, right behind Jalen Waddle, versus the Jets last week. Now, he didn't have a huge target share, only 3 targets, but it's not like Tua had a crazy high pass volume game, and the team does work to get him involved on purpose, whether it's in the screen game, running back snaps, whatever it is. He's averaging 2 rushing attempts per game. Now, that's not necessarily going to skyrocket you in fantasy points, especially in PPR leagues, but he's getting pushed into a role now that he has no choice but to play 80+% of the snaps every single week compared to his 50% on average. Now, if you have the luxury, Tyreek Hill's injury definitely benefits Darren Waller the number 1 most. So if Darren Waller is still available on your waivers, he is the number 1 stash priority. But again, he's rostered in over 60% of leagues, so most sharp leagues don't have him there. But Malik Washington is 100% worth a stash because he saw some success at the end of last season too, when he was playing over 80% of the snaps, averaging 5 targets a game in that stretch. I don't think he's going to come through and completely win leagues, but we know Jalen Waddle has not been a complete target hog in his starts, and there definitely is some availability in this offense for somebody to step up. And more players you need to stash if you haven't or can't get any of these guys before your league mates can is your handcuff running backs. So the Blake Corums, the Tyler Algiers, even the Amari DeMarcados and Michael Carters, guys. If those 2 players are still on your waiver wire, they need to be your number 1 ad. If you're a sicko like me, you can also stash Tyler Bass coming off IR, filling in for Matt Prater when he comes back for the Bills. This offense scores a ton. He is always going to be valuable because of that. We can also go through and stash guys like Joey Sly, Eddie Pinheiro, Spencer Strader. If you haven't gotten them, they're consistently top kicker options. I also do like stashing Oronde Gadsden, guys. This is a player that I haven't talked too much about. I did in one video. His snaps are increasing, his targets are increasing. Herbert likes to throw the ball, and this offense is looking like one of the higher pass volume ones. There is a ton of wide receiver options in this offense, so the target share is going to be a little bit skewed, but still, Oronde Gadsden at some point in fantasy football could be valuable because he is making the case to be the tight end one the longer and longer and longer he plays as a starter for this team. He will probably be in future videos. As of right now, he's not a must grab, but keep your eye on him for the future weeks. That is going to finish out this video, though. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video coming tomorrow.